The sun was barely peeking over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber, when I noticed a neon orange flyer slapped onto my front door like a slap in the face. My coffee steamed in my hand as I squinted at the bold, angry letters, saw notice of removal. Unauthorized crops must be cleared within 14 days or face legal action. Saw I blinked, certain I'd misread it. Crops? My fields? A sharp laugh escaped me, slicing through the morning calm. Whoever thought they could bully a farmer off land leased to the federal government for decades clearly hadn't done their homework. But as the amusement faded, a slow, smoldering anger took its place. Someone had just thrown down a gauntlet, and I wasn't about to back away. By noon, the neighborhood was abuzz, gossip spreading faster than wildfire. The HOA president, a woman named Margaret, had deemed my sprawling cornfields an eyesore, a blight on her shine of suburban perfection. Margaret, with her shrill voice and an iron grip on the neighborhood, believed my fields sible from her manicured cul-de-sacs were dragging down property values. From my porch, I watched her strut along the edge of my land, clipboard in hand, flanked by 2 board members trailing her like obedient shadows. Her oversized sun hat bobbed as she gestured wildly at my crops, her voice carrying over the breeze. A neglected wasteland, she called it. A threat to our community's aesthetic. She even claimed kids could get lost in the corn, as if my fields were some sinister maze. I couldn't decide whether to laugh or storm over there. Enough was enough. I set my coffee down and ambled toward her, boots crunching on the gravel. Margaret froze when she saw me, clutching her clipboard like a shield. Her lackeys shuffled back, eyeing me warily. "Good afternoon," I said, voice steady as stone. She launched into a tirade about HOA landscaping rules, insisting my fields fell under her domain because they were sible from her precious streets. I asked, calm as I could manage, how her rules applied to agricultural land leased by the federal government for over 70 years. She didn't blink, declaring with unshakable arrogance that her HOA's authority superseded all. That's when I knew this wasn't about reason, it was about power. I gave her a smile, the kind you flash before calling someone's bluff, and told her my land was part of a federal program for agricultural preservation and veteran support. "Touch one stalk," I said, "and you'll face consequences you can't imagine." Her eyes narrowed, but I saw each thought I was bluffing. That evening, a notice slid under my door, summoning me to an emergency HOA meeting to vote on removing my crops. I stared at the paper, marveling at their gall. My farm sat half a mile outside their neighborhood's boundaries, yet they acted like they owned it. As the sun dipped low, casting my fields in a golden glow, I sat on my porch, coffee in hand. This land wasn't just dirt, it was legacy. My father tilled it, his father before him, and now it served veterans healing through the soil. Margaret had no idea what she'd awakened. I made a silent vow: if she wanted a fight, I'd meet her on my terms, quiet, legal, and relentless. The next evening, humidity hung heavy as I pulled my creaking truck into the community clubhouse lot, dwarfed by gleaming SUVs. Neighbors shot me glances, some curious, some hostile, as I tipped my hat and stepped inside. The room was packed, folding chairs crammed together, facing a table where Margaret and her board sat like a tribunal. Margaret, in a pristine white blazer, banged a gavel with theatrical flair, announcing we were there to address the violation of my farmland. She unveiled a poster board plastered with photos of my fields, circled in red like EVY Denke at a murder trial. Her rant was pure performance obstructed VYUs, rodents, plummeting home values nonsense delivered with the fervor of a zealot. When she opened the floor, a few residents timidly questioned her authority over land outside the neighborhood. Margaret brushed them off, insisting the VY soil impact gave her rights. I saw my opening. Stepping forward, I said, "For the record, this land is leased by the Department of Agriculture for a federal preservation program. It's protected. Your HOA has no jurisdiction, and you're harassing me while violating federal property rights." The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Margaret's mouth twitched, but she forced a saccharine smile, suggesting a Neighborly agreement. I smiled back. Sure. Leave my land alone, or deal with the feds. Her face reddened, and she vowed to remove the crops herself and bill me. I nodded, promising to document every step for the Department of Agriculture and the sheriff. She slammed her gavel, ending the meeting before it could unravel further. The days that followed were a slow burn of escalation. Margaret sent a certified letter with a final warning. I framed it. I called my contact at the Department of Agriculture, a no-nonsense woman named Ellen, who laughed so hard she nearly choked. She promised an inspector within days and hinted at criminal trespassing charges if Margaret acted. That evening, my motion cameras caught Margaret's cronies creeping along my fence with surveying tools, staking out an imaginary boundary. Later, the footage showed Margaret herself sneaking onto my land at midnight, planting orange flags with spray paint. It was gold. I sent it to Ellen and the sheriff with a polite note: Saw you vy denke of illegal acti vy tie on federal land. Please add vyse saw. The next morning, a landscaping crew roared in, weed whackers and chainsaws at the ready. Margaret strutted like a general, barking orders. I watched from my porch, coffee in hand, and gave them 2 minutes before dialing the sheriff. As the first blade grazed a cornstalk, I made the call. The sheriff arrived to find half the neighborhood gawking. A towering man with a face like granite, he listened to Margaret's screeching about aesthetics, then detained her for questioning. The workers dropped their tools and bolted. I handed over my footage and the federal lease. The sheriff nodded, promising action. As Margaret was led away, I tipped my hat. The real consequences were coming. Margaret went quiet, but I knew she wasn't done. Ellen warned that federal processes took time, but I was patient. One evening, my motion detectors pinged. A new landscaping crew, hired from 2 counties away, rolled in with heavy mowers. Margaret shouted orders, obli vys to the workers' confusion. I called Ellen, who said, "Stay put. Agents are coming." I recorded everything. As the first blade touched my crops, government SUVs roared up, lights flashing. Department of Agriculture agents swarmed, joined by deputies. Margaret charged at them, while vying her clipboard, screaming about her rights. A steely agent let her rant, then read her charges: trespassing, destruction of federal property, interference with the federal program. Fines could climb to the stars, with jail time on the table. Margaret's face crumpled, her world collapsing. She blamed everyone but herself, but the agents had footage, documents, and witnesses. They warned that further interference meant arrest. The crew fled, and Ellen later confirmed the government would repair the damage and pursue Margaret personally, not the HOA. 2 nights later, footsteps on gravel jolted me awake. I grabbed a flashlight and hit the spotlight, catching 3 teenagers with gasoline and matches. My shout froze them. They dropped everything, confessing Margaret had paid them to torch the fields, promising to cover any trouble. The sheriff cuffed them, shaking his head. This wasn't petty, it was criminal. Margaret had crossed the line she couldn't uncross. The town erupted. By morning, everyone knew Margaret had orchestrated vandalism and attempted arson. The sheriff confirmed charges: conspiracy, felony endangerment. Her HOA allies abandoned her, claiming ignorance. Ellen's team set up a field office in the community center, their SUVs a stark reminder of who held power. Residents, once swayed by Margaret, now rallied behind me, hosting events for farmland preservation and donating to the Veterans Program. Margaret hired a slick city lawyer, filing absurd counterclaims against me for entrapment and defamation. Ellen's office dismantled them, and the judge tossed the case. Her lawyer quit, and foreclosure signs soon marked her La Vysh home. Her SUV was repossessed, her status erased. She became a pariah, slinking away to escape her shattered reputation. Life on the farm healed. The fields recovered, bolstered by grants and donations. The Veterans Program expanded with a greenhouse and education center, drawing more veterans and families. Festivals brought the community together, children laughing where Margaret once schemed. A plaque at the farm's entrance read, "Saw this land is protected by community strength and quiet defiance." Saw in quiet moments, I reflected on the fight. This land wasn't just crops, it was resilience, history, community. A child's drawing of me, standing tall in the fields, captured it all. Margaret thought she could control something bigger than her. She failed. As the sun set over the golden corn, I knew we'd won out with fury, but with truth, patience, and the unbreakable spirit of those who stand their ground.